Morning, Earthlings. How you doing today? Welcome to First Contact Radio, Tuesday edition. All right. Not that the Tuesday edition is any different than the Monday, Wednesday, Thursday, or Friday. It's just Tuesday. Okay, here we go. Cosmic weather for today, starting off at spaceweather.com. Solar wind, 449 kilometers per second. We have a low density count of proteins. And if we go look at our solar storms, look at this. We're at a 4. We were at a 6 yesterday. A 4 today. The 24-hour max is a 6. And this storm itself would be, I'm guessing, rated as a 6, because the other day when we had the KP7 as the max, that's what the storm was seemed to be rated at. Coronal holes, we see a couple of things here. Let's take a look. We don't see our big triangle. Remember the big triangle? We haven't seen that in a while. Okay, we got a few things developing here to pay attention to. Alright. And then from there, go down and check out our M-class flares. We don't really have any chance for that. 10% chance in the next 24 hours. And geostorm activity, geomagnetic storm activity. We can see where we stand in here. 35% chance we're going to see something active in the mid-latitudes. In the high latitudes, 35% chance it's going to be severe. So, get your cameras ready. Could have some interesting sky shows out there. Let's take a look at some of these other lights that people are seeing in the sky. It's pretty amazing. That's really cool. This is outside of Edmonton. That's the one that came off the sun. Alright, moving right along. Next stop along our path of cosmic weather is what is the astrology for today. The main things we're looking at are the two main lights, the sun and the moon. The sun represents the conscious mind, the moon represents the unconscious mind. And when we break it down, we look at the elements that we're working with. The sun is dealing with Libra at this point. Libra is the energy right now. Libra is an air element. Therefore, the conscious mind is dealing with the element of air. Well, the unconscious mind, the moon, is dealing with these two right here. And we're in between. This is called the void of course, between Cancer and Leo. And this is where the moon, because the moon goes about every 2.5 days or so in a sign, and it moves to the next sign. So it's just in that transition phase. It's not fully Cancer, it's not fully Leo, it's kind of in that middle point. And Cancer is water, Leo is fire, so it's making that transition from water into fire. At the same time, that's going on unconsciously. And if we just look at the idea of water, water is emotions, fire is ideas. So you've got emotions working themselves towards ideas, and all of these things are brewing underneath the surface unconsciously. While in the conscious mind, Libra is looking for its way to find that karmic balance, balance things out. Because remember, Libra, if we look at the tarot card, it's the card of justice, karmic balance. So this is a time when we're looking to have that balance in life, to get things on track, to know that, we don't owe anything. Nobody needs any, we don't expect anything. We're all even. That's what we try to get to in life, right? We try to actually get ahead, but the balancing point is very important. So, void of course, moon underneath, dealing with a couple of signs, so unconsciously just, bear with whatever's going on. Just allow the transition take place, because tomorrow we're fully immersed in the Leo energy. Okay, so that's what we got going on consciously. Unconsciously, moon phase wise, we're making our way down to a new moon, only 37% of the way to go. And on the Mayan Oracle, we are at a 4-tone day. The 4-tone is called the self-existing tone of form. The self-existing tone of form. And the kin for today in the middle here is the wizard, which is all about timelessness. So you got the 4 wizard, or self-existing wizard is the name of the day. and the guide is the dog. So today is the self-existing wizard guided by the dog. We could see the wizard here in the 4th position, because everything matches up. On the wave spell of the monkey, which is about playfulness, and this wave spell is a 13-day period of time, all themed according to the first one here, the monkey. And then we have our supporting cast members all around the wizard, which is the seed, which is the challenge for today, new growth. The like-minded power is the serpent, which is energy, our life force energy, and the hidden power is our ability to create or accomplish. The phrase for today I define in order to enchant, measuring receptivity. I seal the output of timelessness with the self-existing tone of form. I am guided by the power of heart. And the Gregorian calendar is Tuesday, October 9th, 2012. And just to show you, we are still in the middle pillar here, right here. We're going to be for the rest of this week, so use this as an opportunity to really key into anything important that you need to know out there. Really tune in. This middle pillar, it definitely is a interesting phase. Like I said, the first 6 and the last 6 reflect each other. The middle one stands on its own, and others revolve and move around it. All right. So there you have it. That's our cosmic weather. That's what we're dealing with today energetically. Now, why, for anyone new, why the cosmic weather? Because everything around us is energy. Everything in us is energy. It's all about energy. And this period that we're going through, this 2012 time shift, which is coming up in 73 days, or actually, let me rephrase that. This cycle concludes in 73 days. So we're at this last 73 days of a cycle. And as we all know, at the end of a cycle, at the end of a race, there's always that pickup phase. So these next 73 days, we can expect that there's going to be an increase in some sort of activity that's going to help bring this cycle to a close. A cycle that has been going around. This is several cycles in combination. It's a 5,125-day cycle, or 25-year cycle. It's also a cycle of 26,000 years, roughly, a little bit short of that. And these are coming to conclusion. So as these are wrapping up, expect more intensity. Now, what kind of intensity am I talking about? Am I talking about physical intensity in the world outside? Maybe some. There'll probably be some earth changes, because what is happening is as the energy is increasing and is affecting the planet, and the planet is going through changes as well because it is being affected by this energy. As the planet is affected by the energy, there are earth changes because the earth is growing as well. So there may be some earthquakes as we've experienced. There may be some volcanoes that are opening up. We may see crazy weather patterns. All of these things are par for the course. But the 2012 or the December 21st experience that we're all moving towards and going through, it's not all about physical changes. As a matter of fact, the majority of the changes are going to be taking place on the subtle energy levels of the body. Physical is one we know of, but then we have the emotional, the spiritual, the mental, all of the different bodies we talk about when we do the meditation. And so these are the areas that we want to be tuned in more, because the order of time that we're coming to understand is changing. We're still caught up in the Gregorian calendar time down here on Earth. But Earth time isn't the only time that's out there. So that's the whole idea of the Mayan calendar, to get humans acclimated to understanding time as something more than just a clock, something that they put on their watch and look at the numbers based on 12. Time is much more expanded than that. So, bottom line of all this, everything is energy. We're going through an energetic shift. We have 73 days left of this cycle where the energy is going to continue to accelerate, and we need to keep evolving, keep ourselves open to the process of change. Now, in light of all of that, yesterday I played a piece on Gregg Braden, first part of an interview, and it was a really good interview. And there's 2 parts to it. So today I wanted to play the second part because the first one I thought was so good that the second part was worth hearing again. Again, this is a 15-minute piece like yesterday. I'm not going to play the whole thing. I'm only going to play about 10 minutes, and then I'll leave the rest for you with the link so that you can listen to it on your own. All right? Enough of me to stop rambling. And here we go. Here's the piece.
Were they really primitive, or were they so advanced that they didn't have the need for the kinds of things that we have today? And it's a question that's being taken seriously by a lot of archaeologists, anthropologists today. So as we find our way, it's an interesting path, because what has happened is when we were lost, some of us chose this path of external technology, and now we've pushed it about as far as we can. And to survive, now we've got to come back and bring in the other portion, the internal technology, the wisdom of our relationship, the power of human emotion, and the role that it plays in the physics of our world. It is perhaps, as the ancients said, the single most powerful force in the universe. Human emotion focused as very specific modalities of prayer. Western physicists are only beginning to understand this. They thought we were observers, and now they're saying we're not observers. We, by the act of being here, we are participating, we're creating the world that we're seeing right now. There's a school of physics now that suggests that the universe, in fact, is here and exists because we're looking. And what they found is that every place human consciousness seeks or peers to see and investigate what's there, the act of looking is an internal process, and consciousness will place something there for us to see. They said we'll never find the end of the universe. We'll never find it, because every place we look, consciousness is the creator. We'll put something there. And it is these kinds of understandings that are bringing science and physics back full circle to tie in this outer and this inner technology, saying, you know, maybe we have something to say and something to do about the peace in our world and the healing in our bodies. Maybe it's not just a random process, and that's where the power of our inner technology begins.
You wrote a book called The Isaiah Effect, speaking about the collective consciousness when focused properly through the emotions, the amount that can be accomplished with really a relatively small number of people. Can you just encapsulate that very briefly for people?
The investigations, well, first of all, these are not new ideas. The idea that we are connected through a field of energy has been around forever, thousands of years. What's new is the scientific validation of the field. And scientists now coming to terms, okay, the field's there, what do we do with it? How connected are we really to this field? It led to a series of experiments back in the 1970s, and the TM people, Transcendental Meditation University, backed and funded and pulled in some very good scientists to do some of these fields. What they found was they had 24 cities in the United States with populations over 10,000 people. And they did experiments, scientifically governed experiments, and they would take a certain number of people and ask them to feel the feeling of peace, for example. Not to think the thought, but rather to feel the feeling in their bodies for certain periods of time. And what they found was during those periods of time, statistically, the communities around them changed. Crimes against people declined, violent crimes. Emergency hospital room visits declined. Traffic accidents declined. In cities where the stock market was, the stock market soared when this was happening. And when the people stopped feeling the peace, all those statistics reversed. And this led to a greater experiment. It was called the International Peace Project in the Middle East. It was during the Lebanese War with Israel in the early 1980s. They had people that were strategically placed in the war zones. And during the window of time, it's called the prayer window, when the people were feeling the peace in their bodies, terrorist activities dropped to zero. They completely stopped. And all the other things happened. The crimes against people, violent crimes, emergency hospital room visits, all declined. And they tried these just to make sure it wasn't maybe the time of the month or full moon cycles or holidays. They tried them all different times, double-blind studies, statistically valid studies. And what they found was it takes a relatively few number of people to jumpstart this experience in consciousness, and the number is the square root of 1%, which is a very small number. So if you take a population, whether it's 10 people or 1 million, and you take 1% of that in your calculator, and then you take the square root of that, it'll tell you how many people. that you need. So in a city of 1 million people, for example, it only takes about 100. Or in a world of 6 billion people, it only takes about 8,000 to jumpstart this effect. Obviously, the more people that participate, the more accelerated the effect. As empowering as the discovery of a message within the cells of all life is, what may be even more significant is that the only way we could ever unravel the mystery and decode a language in the DNA of life, we haven't talked even about what this language is yet, the only way we could do that is to cross the artificial boundaries, the traditional boundaries that have kept us separate from our world now for over 400 years. Science is only about 400 years old. And when science came along, and I'm a scientist and I support the scientific method, and the best scientists will tell you that our science is incomplete. What science came along, it did, was it came along and compartmentalized and separated what is actually all unified together. There is no physics and chemistry and biology and geology out there. There's a world, we call it nature. To help us feel comfortable with the complexity of nature, they compartmentalize it into sciences now to such a degree that when a physicist studies physics, we no longer know that that physics has any relation to perhaps chemistry. Or when I was working on this project, the linguist told me no one ever said that language had anything to do with life, or that biology had anything to do with ancient texts. And it was only by crossing those traditional boundaries, honoring the wisdom of our past, that we were able to come to the understandings that we did. And what that understanding is, it's a research project that I began as an engineer back in the late 1980s during the last years of the Cold War, looking for a single principle of peace that would include every human on the face of the earth, regardless of their beliefs or their lifestyle or their heritage or their culture, something that was common to everyone and that made sense in the 1980s. This was before the Genome Project or any of these things happened. To look at DNA in the cells of our bodies, and following the clues that were left in the ancient texts. All I did was follow them step by step, and the clues said that within your body is a language, and here's the way that language works. And what we now know is that the DNA in our bodies, the elements that we call DNA, literally are linked to the letters of ancient alphabets in very precise ways. And when we make those translations, when the chemicals become the letters, lo and behold, the letters start to spell words, and the words start to spell sentences, and the sentences have meaning. And it appears that the message in our cells exists as many, many layers. And what we've done is crack the code for only the very first layer. It took 12 years to do it. It's a very brief message, and it literally translates, literally says to us, when we look at the DNA, the uppermost level of the DNA, the 4 DNA bases, the building blocks of all life, it literally says the words God eternal within the body. And the complexity of life, from a single yeast cell to the complexity of a human and everything in between, appears to be different combinations of these elements. So a scientist will say they're different combinations of carbon, oxygen, hydrogen, nitrogen, and they're correct by virtue of our language today. The ancients didn't know about those words. They looked at it differently, and they said they're different combinations of the words God eternal within the body, and they're correct as well. 2 different ways of describing our world, very, very different periods of time.
So for this one top layer discovery, what is the implication at this point in history?
The implication for me, searching for a principle of peace, there are many implications. And I've had people ask me, well, why don't you take on the evolutionary biologists, or why don't you take on the theologians? And we could with this kind of information, but that wasn't the purpose for me. I'll let other people take those things to task. My purpose was to find the single principle of peace. What this message says to us, 3 things. It says, beyond a shadow of a doubt, we're here on purpose. It's an intentional code. We don't know who put it there. God eternal within the body. We don't know who God is or what God is. It's interesting, however, that the word God in our bodies matches the word that we find in 2,200-year-old texts like the Dead Sea Scrolls. It's the same name. It tells us we're here on purpose. It tells us that we're part of one another and all life that shares that message. So any form of life where the code can be translated, God eternal within the body, it says they're part of us and we're part of them. And because this code exists even in ancient forms of life where we've been able to glean DNA, in single-celled organisms, for example, it says whoever put that code there existed before those primitive organisms. So it suggests that we are part of perhaps something much greater than we've ever imagined. Now, you can read a lot into that. Scientifically, we can't say what that something is. All we can say is there's a code there. It's intentional. It links all life. For me, what it says to us as I travel the world and I meet these people, and people are ready for peace. They need a reason to look at one another differently. In so many parts of the world, the hatred is so strong because of what has happened between peoples. They need a reason to see themselves differently. And if we were ever going to find a reason, I think the name of God, the same name within the cells of all humans, it gives us a place to begin. It gives us a common plateau, a denominator that says at this very level what we can say is we're not so different.
This is the UFO News with Joshua Poet.
All right, Dirk, thank you very much. This is the UFO News for today. 5 stories. Story number 1. This takes us to space and the space station. And this was live on the NASA cam October 1st. All right. Space station object in question. All right. Says this UFO was caught live on the kind of live ISS cam stream, and shows a gray object, perhaps a diamond in shape, passing near the space station. Sadly, the person turned off the screen recorder early, so we don't know if it went behind the Earth or between the Earth and space station. That would have given us the distance. But there we go. There's our object in question. This was out there by the ISS. Now, it's not an airplane. Not that I'm aware of. Something else indeed. All right, so there's our first sighting out there by the ISS. The next one here comes to us from Baltimore. And this says multiple lights were recorded in the sky above Baltimore, the largest city in the U.S. state of Maryland, and the 24th largest city in the United States. This was filmed on the October 6th. We see we've got, well, there's quite a few of them, as we can see. There's 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6, 7, 8. So it's a short video. Do this one more time. Just a short clip showing what's up there. These look like they're part of the same object, the triangle. Maybe the same thing from a different angle here. This could be the sides here. Very interesting. So that video will be available. Check that one out. Then we go to the moon. And these are towers on the moon. Okay. When looking over the Apollo images of the moon, a few patterns began to jump at me. One being the massive amounts of towers that could be seen coming from mounds, and sometimes white buildings that mimic a crater in shape. They're only a sample of what the moon photo. There are more. It looks to me as if one of the towers broke off from a dark black area and floated over a white area. You can see the black tower floating as a shadow below it. Okay. So there's nothing else with this other than the pictures. Take another look at the pictures again. Okay. It's up there on the surface of the moon. And moving from there over to this is a sighting. And take a good look at this here. Not this. This is the street lamp. This object right here. The Halifax Courier is asking for assistance identifying this object. The sighting was made close to North Halifax Grammar School just prior to the 9 a.m. on Saturday, October 6, 2012. The photographer, Joan Holdsworth, is hoping someone saw the object and can lend a hand in the identification. Ms. Holdsworth was waiting in the car with her son in the school for the entrance exams when she and her son saw two silver objects in the sky. We were watching them for a while. My son said that they looked like two planes. I really couldn't see because it was so bright when I took the photo and didn't realize it was so close. I only looked at this photo this morning. So there's the picture in question. The link will be available, and if you have any idea what this is, or if you are out there and in the same area, in the area of the Halifax Courier, in that range, let them know if you saw this as well, because they are looking for more witnesses. All right, moving from there, our last story for today, and this is about UFO crashes. Now, I thought this was a really good article. It's a long piece. Basically, it says, do UFOs crash? You bet they do. Though relatively rare, reports of UFO crashes are perhaps not as uncommon as many might assume. At least 2 UFOs were reported to have fallen to Earth in 2006 alone, and 2 more such incidents ushering in the new year. From South Africa to Russia to Iran, all of these reports have received national mainstream news coverage in their respective countries of origin, and all have been treated with the utmost seriousness by local and national authorities, except here in the United States where they still deny that such things exist. Okay. So, I mean, these aren't actual pictures, but these are stories of the various crashes that have occurred over time. And as you could see, there's a lot of information here. Okay. So I wanted to make that available because pretty good piece. So there you go. So crashes do happen. Ships go down for a variety of different reasons. Sometimes technical error on the ship. Sometimes there's some environmental problem that goes on outside the ship. A variety of things. Okay? The beings that are flying them are not infallible beings. Beings just from different places. That's all. Okay, so that's our UFO news for today. Let's jump away for a song or part of a song. I'll be back. Stay tuned.
What if our government was responsible for some of the greatest crimes against this nation? Would you really want to know? These are big questions, but these questions deserve answers. It's time to demand the truth.
People should not be afraid of their governments. Governments should be afraid of them.
9/11 was an inside job. Kennedy was killed by the CIA. Jimmy Carter saw UFO. Answers to secrets you need to know. So wake up, wake up, wake up, wake up. Wake up, wake up, wake up. Wake up, wake up, wake up, wake up. Wake up, wake up, wake up.
Okay. Are you awake? Wake up, wake up, wake up, wake up. Wake up, wake up, wake up. Wake up, wake up, wake up, wake up. Wake up, wake up, wake up. Alright, I've been playing that song for quite a while on this show. One day I may play something different. But the objective was for everybody to wake up. And there you go. Alright, continue on. Next story here is this is the weekly update by Ron Paul. There we go.
With your weekly update for October 8th. The media insists on characterizing statements about dependency on government handouts as controversial, but in truth, such statements are absolutely correct. It's not that nearly half of Americans are dependent on government, it's actually more than half. If one includes not only people on food stamps and welfare, but also seniors on Medicare, Social Security, and people employed by the government directly, the number is more like 165 million out of 308 million, which is 53%. Some argue that Social Security and Medicare benefits are a right because people pay into these programs their whole lives, or that we need a government safety net in place for people who fall on hard times. However, this all becomes a moot point when the funds people depend on become worthless due to government default or rampant inflation. This is less an issue of dignity or dependence on government and more about the deceitfulness of government promises. The Fed recently announced that it plans to keep interest rates near zero and keep buying near worthless assets from banks indefinitely. This enables Congress to spend without having to take deficits or the debt seriously, and there is every indication they intend to spend with impunity until the system collapses. There are no brakes on the runaway train. The federal debt ceiling law does nothing to limit spending. The ceiling will have to be raised yet again, perhaps before the year is out. What is happening in Greece with austerity measures and riots in the streets will happen here within a decade, according to some realistic estimates, if we do not find some way to fiscally restrain our government. There is little point in a debate about having entitlements to health care or food or shelter from fellow taxpayers if the whole system has collapsed. And with the way our politicians have taken over and mismanaged vast amounts of resources, collapse seems almost unavoidable. Yet the number of Americans who have significant dependency on government is dangerously high, and I honestly fear for them. Worse, corporate welfare is also at an all-time high with no signs of diminishing. Though it is hard to quantify, Tad DeHaven at Cato has estimated that the government spends nearly twice as much on corporate welfare than on social welfare. Both parties are equally guilty. More and more, the business sector is learning to rely on taxpayers' largesse in one form or another. They used to be solely concerned with providing a better product to the consumer at a better price. Now, success on Wall Street depends entirely too much on having the best lobbyists on K Street. If one indicates the employees of private businesses who depend on government contracts, grants, or bailouts, there are even more people dependent on government in some way. Government does not create resources when it taxes people and prints money. It merely redistributes the wealth while supporting a massive, wasteful bureaucracy along the way. Government is a giant blood-sucking parasite on our otherwise healthy economy. For too long, we have entrusted too much economic power and influence to irresponsible politicians in Washington. It's the chaos that ensues after they run the system into the ground that will be so painful for so many people. But realigning our economy with the free market and away from government mandates and handouts must happen in order for it to thrive again. The answer is not to keep asking government to do more. The answer is to extricate our economy and ourselves from the grasp of Washington, D.C. as much as possible now, before our dependency becomes our downfall. Thanks for calling this update. A new update is placed on this number, 888-322-1414, every Monday. The written text can be found on my website, www.house.gov/Paul, under the heading Texas Straight Talk. Thanks for calling.
All right, continuing along. Thank you for that, Dr. Paul. And next, Obama and the birther issue. The birther. You know, every time I hear that phrase, it's just crazy. Birther issue. What is a birther? Somebody who wants to know that the President of the United States was born in this country. And yet, that's made out to be a bad thing? Huh. It's because of the media. The media paints these pictures and uses these words, and people buy into it. And then they walk around, oh, you're a birther, you're a truther, you want to know the truth about things. How dare you? You want to know that the president was born in this country and fulfills the constitutional requirements. How dare you? I mean, come on now. Aren't these basics that we should have, right? The basic things we should be expecting? Well, here's a article. It's at ObamaReleasedYourRecords.blogspot.com. It says, Obama, who's your daddy? Now, go ahead and play this here. Article goes on to say, why are people still talking about the birther issue? Congress and the Supreme Court have said they're not looking into this, but this issue clearly still has legs. According to Adam Berlinski, a professor of political science at MIT, the birther issue never really went away. He's been conducting polls at the birthplace issue, which he compiled in an article called The Birthers Are Back. To wit, a lot of Americans continue to have doubts about Obama. For the last 4 years, Barack Obama has been plagued by rumors that he is not a natural-born citizen of the United States, and as a result is not eligible to serve as president. These rumors continue to show surprising resilience. But what Berlinski did in his polling was what the progressive defenders of the faith have always done: confuse the birthplace question with other questions regarding Obama's eligibility to hold office. To many, the issue isn't where he was born. The question is, who is his father, and is Obama a natural-born citizen since his father was not a U.S. citizen? Barack Hussein Obama has spent about $2 million to keep the American people from taking a peek at his original long-form birth certificate. Nobody spends that kind of money unless there's something really damning that he wants to hide. In spite of all of the posturing, courtroom drama, political maneuvers, endless obfuscation, and frenzied production of yet another highly questionable birth certificate, fully half the American people have doubts about President Obama's birth certificate and his eligibility to hold office. This is astonishing, but even more is a theory about Obama's origins that, if true, could rattle the world almost as much as a Supreme Court finding that Obama is not a natural-born citizen. And let's see. And if we continue on, you can see there's a number of articles here relating to the same issue. This was from 2006 when Obama was in Kenya. I'm so proud to come back home. Here, the 2007 video of Michelle Obama when she declares Obama is Kenyan. Here's another one, 2008, about Barack Obama's home country is Kenya. And then here's his bio where he states it. So, again, the evidence is out there. It's not really too difficult to find. The only problem is understanding and accepting it once the truth is put in front of you. And for a good portion of people, they have. And that's why the article exists, because as this professor from MIT finds out, there's a lot of people who are questioning. Okay, now, there is good reason for people to question what is going on in society, what the powers that be have in mind, because there are places like this that exist, the Georgia Guidestones. And people see them and they read what's on them and they are curious. So we've done some spots on the Georgia Guidestones before. I'm going to do another one here. Listen to this. And as this video goes through, you could see it's showing a variety of different symbols and how Hollywood and particular musicians join in with their symbols that they show during their presentations. And this is one way how people are brainwashed into accepting something, because you get the people who are out there who maybe don't even know what's going on, but that they are used in such a manner to help others understand subconsciously something that they don't necessarily know what's really going on. Okay. And it's really interesting when you go through and you go through all of these different clips and you find out what's here and what symbols are out there. And let me just skip through ahead here. Alright, seems this video's having a few problems. Seems like it's more than just the video's having a few problems. Okay. Alright, moving right along here. This next story here, the other day, I read the piece about the bill on the mass casualties bill. And now, here's an article comes to us from Pack Alert Press. Talks about that issue. It says, well, what is coming? Mass death fears rock U.S. underground. Question is, what is coming? It is imperative for us to report that some of the most dire reports to date we received in the past decade from the American underground movement involve a new U.S. law that mandates that the Federal Emergency Management Agency begin a new system of mass fatality planning as the wheels, so to speak, continue to fall off the present global economic system. Making these reports even more shocking are that they follow on the heels of even more dire reports that FEMA has begun shipping coffins to many of the concentration camps being built throughout the United States, begun under the former Bush regime and accelerated under Obama. Unbeknownst to the American people, the situation is making these disturbing actions occur is that for the first time in human history, a dominant global power is being faced with the dilemma that the most significant part of its civilian population is endangering its very survival. Specifically, nearly 40 million American citizens are now classified as belonging to what is called the baby boomer generation, which since January 2011 has seen 10,000 of them retiring every month, and who will continue to do so for the next 18 years, a situation which, if allowed to continue, will literally destroy the United States financially, and which a backlash from the younger generation that have to pay for them has already begun. So, not being understood by the American people is that their true unemployment rate is nearly 15%, as the majority of those without jobs belong to this baby boomer generation, and who, unlike those unemployed during the past economic downturns, are not able to be retrained or physically unable to enjoy the benefits of vast public work projects like those used to lift the United States out of their worst economic depressions in the past. So, can you imagine if we had a time machine and we could go back to Nazi Germany? And can you imagine that before what happened in Nazi Germany, that this type of information might have been coming out? Could you imagine before all of the death camps and all of the showers that these articles were coming out that the government was planning on mass fatalities, how to deal with them? And now we know what has happened over there. Here we have a situation in the United States that seems that Americans are turning a blind eye to, as if, oh, this will never happen. I'm sure that's what they thought in Germany too. I'm sure it will never happen. But guess what? It did. It did. You know, there was a moment I was standing out there outside the Republican National Convention, standing outside all of the fences and with the security and so on. And there was a woman there. She was a porter from Germany. And she was looking around at what was going on there. And she said, I'm glad that we learned our lesson. We don't do this kind of propaganda in Germany. This is what she said to me. And it was quite amazing to hear somebody who is from a country that has a history like they have, and yet to say something about the Americans and notice something. And it was very telling about where we seem to be going and in which direction we're heading. It doesn't seem to be a good place because something is going on. Something is going on. And, you know, don't let George Bush off the hook, because he and his cronies, they were involved with all of this, and a lot of these camps and things are in place because of him. So he's a war criminal. I'm not giving that guy a pass at all. Him or Dick Cheney, Donald Rumsfeld, Condoleezza Rice, that whole crew, war criminals, absolute war criminals. And they put things in place that are coming back, and Americans need to pay attention to. Okay, next up is we can get over here. Seem to be having a few little technical difficulties here. Hold on. All right. Well, there we go. All right. I wanted to bring this link here. This is the live broadcast, and mission's going to resume here in 1 hour and 28 minutes. And this is the live broadcast of the jump from space, the mission to the edge of space. So I wanted to make sure you had the link, because this should be quite interesting and amazing to watch if this actually goes down today, of what's going to happen with this and the space and the jump and the whole deal. All right, so links available. Nothing's going on there, so we're just going to move on from there. There's some saying that this might even be one of these white orbs. People were wondering what these orbs were in the midst of this shot. So we'll hear more about that tomorrow, I'm sure. Now, moving right along. This next story here, this one here talks all about Stonehenge. And some scientists, some gentlemen got together, and they did some 3D laser scanning of the objects. And they made some interesting observations. It said stonemasons used, or the article says, has the mystery of Stonehenge's purpose finally been solved? 3D laser scanning shows stones were aligned with the sun to light up an art gallery. Now it says stonemasons used the best materials where the sun would hit them. Laser scan revealed more prehistoric carvings, including 71 new images of bronze axe heads. Stonehenge was designed to light up carvings as though they were on display in a modern museum. A groundbreaking 3D scan of the iconic stones has found. The latest 3D laser technology revealed new evidence of the importance of the midwinter sunset to the ancient creators of Stonehenge, along with 71 new images invisible to the naked eye due to the weathering of the stone. It suggests that the stonemasons used the best materials where the rays would hit the stone, ensuring that they would glisten in the final light of the setting winter solstice sun or at dawn on the longest day. We got some of the scans of things that they're seeing within there. Little markings they weren't seeing before. It says they reveal hidden images in the stones, arrowheads invisible. Says the laser scan has also revealed many more prehistoric carvings, including 71 new images of bronze axe heads chipped into 5 of the giant stones, bringing the number of such carvings discovered at Stonehenge to 115. And then we have reconstructions that were done using the 3D scanning technology. Some images of how they were doing the work. Okay. So this is quite a fascinating project indeed, and you can see there's quite a bit to the article on what they're finding, and pretty fascinating. And even more like detailed little graphs of this. Alright, so the link's available for you to check it out, see what you think. Alright, and that brings us to the very end. And the last thing we have for today, if we can actually get over to here, would be our meditation for today. So let's go ahead and get things situated. Alright, I'm having all kind of challenges here today, folks, so bear with me, please. Alright, here we go. Alright, continuing on. We're almost through. Warrior of the Light. We continue. The Warrior of Light pays close attention to a text that the soul of the world transmitted to Chico Javier. When you have managed to overcome grave problems in a relationship, Do not spend time remembering the difficult times. Concentrate on the joy of having passed yet another life's test. When you emerge from a long period of medical treatment, do not brood over the suffering you endured. Think instead of God's blessing that allowed you to be cured. Carry in your memory for the rest of your life the good things that came out of those difficulties. They will serve as a proof of your abilities and will give you confidence when you are faced by other obstacles. The warrior of the light concentrates on the small miracles of daily life. He is capable of seeing what is beautiful because he carries beauty within himself. For the world is a mirror and gives back to each man the reflection of his own face. The warrior knows his faults and limitations, but he does all he can to maintain his good humor in moments of crisis. The world is, after all, doing its best to help him, even though everything around him seems to be saying the opposite. There is such thing as emotional rubbish. It is produced in the factories of the mind. It consists of pain that has long since passed and is no longer useful. It consists of precautions that were important in the past, but that serve no purpose in the present. The warrior has memories too, but he learns how to separate them, the useful ones, from the unnecessary. He disposes of his emotional rubbish. Companion says, "But that's part of my history. Why should I jettison feelings that marked my very existence?" The warrior smiles, but he does not try to feel things that he no longer feels. He is changing, and he wants his feelings to keep pace with him. When the master sees that the warrior is depressed, he says, "You are not what you seem to be in these moments of sadness. You are better than that. Many have left, for reasons we will never understand. But you are still here. Why did God carry off all those amazing people and leave you? By now, millions of people will have given up. They don't get angry, they don't weep, they don't do anything. They merely wait for time to pass. They have lost the ability to react. You, however, are sad. This proves that your soul is still alive." Sometimes in the middle of an apparently endless battle, the warrior has an idea, and he manages to triumph in a matter of seconds. Then he thinks, "Why did I labor for so long over a battle that could have been resolved with only half the energy I spent on it?" The truth is that all problems seem very simple once they have been resolved. The great victory, which appears simple today, was the result of a series of small victories that went unnoticed. Then the warrior understands what happened, and he sleeps easy. Far from blaming himself for having taken so long to arrive, he is simply glad to know that he did arrive in the end. There are two types of prayer. In the first type, the person asks for certain things to happen and attempts to tell God what he should do. This does not allow the Creator either time or space in which to act. God, who knows perfectly well what is best for each of us, will continue to do as he sees fit, and the person praying is left with the impression that his prayer went unanswered. In the second type, the person may not understand the Almighty's intentions, but he allows his life to develop according to his Creator's plans. He asks to be spared suffering, he asks for joy in the good fight, but he never forgets to add, "Thy will be done." This is how the warrior of light chooses to pray. Let's take a deep breath. Exhale. Now, honor the warrior of light that you are. Honor the light that resides within you. And know, as we've learned, that our thoughts do create. And let's imagine if all of us, right now around the planet, around this entire globe, let's just imagine everybody thinking the word peace. Peace. Let's imagine a world that is a world of peace. What does that world look like to you? Imagine seeing a world that looks peaceful. Imagine looking around and seeing smiling faces, relaxed, happy faces. Imagine that when you turn on the televisions and you see the reporters, imagine they have nothing to report, for the world is a peaceful place. And imagine for the first time ever you actually see the reporters on the news as people who let their guards down and express their relief at being able to enjoy some peace. Imagine all the leaders of the countries around the world enjoying the peace of life, while those who are the warmongers are cast off to their own separate island where they can go and fight and create whatever problems they want away. For peace is what the people want. And let us just hold the idea of peace and make that our simple request for today. That today is a peaceful day. And let's share that thought and think that thought and see what happens. So as we hold ourselves in that place of peace, let's bring our energy and attention back to the present moment on the count of 3. 3, coming back to the present moment filled with confidence. 2, coming back to the present moment filled with faith. And 1, coming back to the present moment happy, healthy, and whole. Happy, healthy, and whole. There you have it, my friends. That's the end of our show for today. It's the end of our prayer meditation. Let's just go out into the world today and just focus on one simple thing: peace. Let's imagine, as we go through the day, what a world would look like if it was peaceful. What it would smell like. What it would sound like. What it would be like to be walking in a world that was a peaceful place. You see, we can create this. Our minds are very powerful, and we have the ability to create whatever we desire. So let's all focus together and make this a reality. I'll be back tomorrow with more news information. Till then, have a great, peaceful day. Peace. I'm out of here.